Hello, everybody. Sorry, it took me a couple seconds to get to the computer. I just shaved, so gotta put a little alcohol on there. My neck gets a little unhappy. All right, so I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First off, if you are one of those people that celebrates Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever Abrahamic religion replacement for the solstice, happy whatever to you. Solstice is a time for self acknowledgement. Traditionally speaking, before the advent of Abrahamic monotheism, the solstice was a time for destroying of negativity. If you've ever seen, I think they still do it in the Alps, in some of the villages in the Alps, they still do things that they did, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, where they have these, what do they call them? I forget what they call them. But guys walk around in monster suits, and they have bells and drums and things like that, and they walk through the streets of Bavaria or Austria or whatever it is. And this is a very old practice where they would get rid of negativity. They would scare away the darkness, scare away the negativity. This is where you watch out. Better be careful, because Santa's got a list of who's naughty and nice. They used to talk like that, before. They would scare little kids. You better be good, or this monster is going to get you. And think about that however you want, but means it's a good time to take a look at ourselves when we go into the new year. If we go into the new year with self-awareness, with self-honesty, and to basically not deal with any excuses, take full responsibility for what we create in our lives. I think that's a good way to celebrate this time of year. And of course, all the rest of it, giving of gifts. That's the other half of it. You give gifts. You give from the heart. You give unconditional love, true unconditional love, which is you don't care what the outcome is. You just enjoy giving the gift, and what they do with it after that is their business. So for those of us on the codependent side of things, if you're not able to give without wanting anything back, not that that's easy to do all the time, but that's not unconditional love. So we're going to talk about love a little bit. I'm going to complain a little bit about some comments, and I might be a little bit harsh, but it's all coming from love. I'm not going to try and say that. It's not coming from love. It's coming from annoyance. And then, you can do with it what you want. So let's start with what is love? So, got a comment. I love comments. Bear in mind, if you leave a comment on my channel, you are volunteering to have a video completely devoted to you. If you don't want that, don't leave a comment. But I really appreciate comments from borderlines who are in recovery. And it's really quite amazing, that the things that they say, and some of the things that I'm apparently getting right when I talk about what borderlines are feeling and what they go through. Let me be clear about that. This channel is not for borderlines. Borderlines are welcome. I mean, everybody's welcome. I mean, I can't prevent anybody from watching the channel. I wouldn't if I could, but I can't. Everybody's welcome. But this channel is for the non-borderlines who are desperately trying to get through the difficulties of having been attached to somebody who has a mental illness that prevents them from being able to reciprocate love in a healthy way. And if you're watching this and you are able to give love in a healthy way, you're able to commit, then I'm not talking about you no matter what letters are, you put next to yourself, your BPD or OCD or, whatever letters you put. If you are able to have healthy relationships, I'm not talking about you. I'm only talking about the people who are toxic, who for whatever reason are incapable. And for those of us who've been with these kinds of, cluster B people who have some kind of disability when it comes to relating to others, then I'm here to help them acknowledge, number one, how much damage that has been done, and that there's no hope. There's no hope. My main goal is to first and foremost get you the hell out, because you're holding on, trying to make something work that's not working. You're trying to get, a snake to put on a leash and go for a walk like it's a dog. You're trying to get a cat to play chess with you. They can't do it. They're just, you're delusional if you think that your toxic borderline is at some point going to turn around and be able to love you. So that's my first goal. My second goal is, once you're out, then you got to realize that now that we've pointed the finger at them and shown how limited they are in all the ways. All you have to do is go on my channel. You can just see just tons. Some, especially when they first get on the channel, they can't help but write 2, 3, 4 things about what those people are doing to me and what they did. And I get that. I felt that way too. Now get it out of your system. Tell me how horrible they are and what they did. And now let's get to, do you want to feel better? So if you want to feel better, then you've got to take full responsibility. Nobody did this to you. You did it to yourself. You went looking for it. It's like somebody going out into the forest looking for the bear traps so that they can step in it. You have to take that kind of responsibility. So this is what we do this time of year. Besides giving gifts, is we take full responsibility for the past year. What do you want to do differently? This is where, New Year's resolutions and all that comes from. This is what this time of year wants to do to you. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you take your life back. And on the join button, if you click at if you join at the super empath level, which, by the way, if the join button doesn't work, there's a link in the description to the video. You can copy and paste that link if you want. And I teach you specific things that I did to heal myself. I'm completely healed. In fact, today it's not exactly a year, but this was the day. 365 days ago today is when I got the final discard. The day after Christmas. That's where I am. It's the day after Christmas. That's what they call Boxing Day here. And it's not people get in the street and box. I don't know why they call it Boxing Day. But it sounds like a pain in the ass. It's like you have Christmas and then you have Boxing Day. We got to put things in boxes now. But it was a year ago today that I got the final discard. That was just the worst, most confusing. That was easily one of the most top 5 painful days of my life. Confusing, just the level of genius that her disorder, planned it out. And this is the way if you look in my earlier videos, I say they plan it out. They're planning out your demise. I needed to see it that way because I was trying to extricate. And if I didn't see it that way, I would have made excuses for her and felt sorry for her and wanted to stay. I had to see that she was doing it to me so that I could leave, so that I knew there was no hope. Now, having benefit of hindsight and a year later and having healed from that relationship, I realized that she wasn't doing it, but her disorder was. Her disorder did to her what I was going through, it was doing to her as well. But anyway, let's just get right into it. So I want to look at a couple of comments from a recovering borderline. So this person will know who they are. And I just want to, first off, take my hat off to the person, because I know how difficult it can be to put yourself in recovery. And whenever I hear from borderlines who have been in recovery for a while, and they have the ability to be really honest about their disorder and what they go through, I have nothing but respect for that. So that is the feeling I have about this person. If there's one thing that I want to help them with. So borderlines, if you're watching, I want to help you understand something that you may be feeling a lot of pain about. The worst thing about this, and I do relate to this part, is feeling misunderstood. When you're trying to communicate something and you feel that somebody isn't seeing you and isn't understanding you, that's a very painful, frustrating, hurtful place to be. And so when it comes to the idea of love, borderlines aren't having the same experience about their feelings that you are. And so quite often borderlines will say to me, no, you've got this part wrong, Mike. We love a lot. And they might even say something to the effect of, we actually love more than the average person. And what they're talking about is the intensity of their feeling. And I say that that's not love. And that may sound like a really hurtful, critical thing to say, but it's not. Love is not a feeling. Love is an action. And if you can get past that idea that you're narcissistic, and I'm no different than you, your narcissistic experience of this intense feeling is meaningless if it isn't followed with consistent, rational actions. Actions that you can bank on going forward in the future. Your immediate experience of having a feeling means nothing. In fact, it's not only means nothing, it's worse than that. It can be worse than not having any loving feelings at all. Because the most confusing and painful part about being on the other side of a dysfunctional borderline isn't that they rage or that they ghost or that they, those things are bad when they split. It's that just before the split is the confusing part, because they really do just pour such love and intimacy and vulnerability. And we fall for it every time. And it's not just because we're codependents, although that has a hell of a lot to do with it. It's because the borderlines mean what they say. When you're having that most beautiful pillow talk after having the most intense, loving, or great sex of your life, and you talk about how you tell your non-borderline partner that they're the best and that you love them more than anybody and nobody's ever made you feel this way, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you, and you start to then plan. They start to finally feel, and it's the craziest thing, but every time we think, oh my God, I finally made it. I finally got to her. She now finally knows that I'm safe and that I love her, and now she's going to love me back. And we believe everything you say. And then the next day, it's not just that you break up with us, it's that you attack us. And you do it in the most cruel way imaginable. All those moments where you make yourself vulnerable to us, and then we make ourselves vulnerable to you, and you see things in us. We share things like you share things with us about yourself, such incredible, deep, intimate things, and then we share deep, intimate things, and those we don't realize that you're the internal secondary psychopath that's watching what's going on and waiting to kick in and do their job of destroying the other person. They're taking note. Here's the most vulnerable parts of that person, and then that's used against us in ways that seem diabolical. And so that's why so many non-borderline codependents think that, if we're talking about a straight borderline, that borderlines are the most evil, narcissistic destroyers in the world. But in my experience, because I'm not super, I guess because I've got a lot of alpha in me, I'm not, the narcissists, people that are just straight narcissists, I see them coming. And their cons aren't very good. I can see them planning it out. And, when somebody's lying to you consciously and planning it out, they always make mistakes, and I can always see that coming. Borderlines I can't see coming because they're consciously not trying to lie to me at all, which makes them actually end up being, the end result is that they are. That's why for those of us, and I say people, there's no difference. People say, well, what's the difference between borderline and NPD? And I think mine's an NPD because, I was like, no, that's just the secondary psychopath within the borderline. The psychopath is behind. The borderline, the vulnerable borderline is in front. That's what you are. That's your experience of yourself, borderline. Behind it is the protector, the secondary psychopath, which is waiting. When you are so vulnerable that you start to feel the love and then the fear kicks in, psychopath takes over and then just slices the person to shreds, getting rid of the threat. And again, this has been borderlines who have been in therapy for a while have given me the impression that that's accurate. So let's see, we've got one here. I'm not gonna go too into depth here because I really don't want to look at anything here. Sorry, I don't even know what I just said there. I can't do two things at once. I can't read and talk at the same time. I'm a typical guy. So let's see here. This borderline has been in 12-step groups their whole life. So they were raised in it. So that makes me believe that there's a family member who is either alcoholic or drug addict or something like that. So this person has been exposed to what I believe, this is why I tell people you got to work the 12 steps. Because there's really nothing better at taking responsibility and healing than the 12 steps. And the 12 steps say that. They say, listen, we have to be ruthless with ourselves. We have to take full responsibility. We got ourselves here. Let's look at our selfishness. The fourth step especially. The fourth step in my experience is the key to recovery. Because the fourth step is when you look at your resentments, what they did to you. And if you've been with a toxic borderline, you have a long list of what they did to you. And you're right, they did do all those things. But that awareness isn't going to heal you. What's going to heal you is when you look at your selfishness associated with it. You're not going to see what your selfishness is until you fully indulge in the rage that you have at what they did to you. This is what the fourth step is. The fourth step is not writing a book of what you went through in life or all the bad things you did. It's looking at your resentments and finding out what selfish, self-centered character defects got you involved. Because the truth is, if you've been with a borderline and you have survived more than one split, you are selfish. I don't care. Everything that you think you've done for them, to help them, to heal them, from after the first time that you've been discarded, if you still keep coming back and giving, you're doing it for selfish reasons. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with doing it for selfish reasons. What the wrong part is that you keep doing it over and over again because you want something from them. They keep not giving you what you want. which makes you more and more hurt and more angry. And you don't realize that the pain that you keep allowing yourself to be inflicted with is your own making from your own selfishness. Anyway, so this person's been in that, so that doesn't surprise me why they're more able to heal themselves in therapy. This person has been in therapy and is able to take a look at what they're doing. Let's see if I can. So I'm going to try and find the things that will be helpful for non-borderlines to hear. This person says, when I was younger, I've also bounced from love to hate, and I never knew why. But I knew that I hated that about myself. So yeah, you know that. The borderlines, when they're yelling and screaming at you, that's their own self-directed hatred. They're projecting it onto you. But I knew that I hated about, I wanted to be the person with a lot of friends, but I always thought people hated me. I've learned later that wasn't the case. I never was able to hold friendships, and I always thought it was because of them. But I realize now that my unstable behavior pushed them away. And here we get to some awareness here. She says, I'm now so terrified of losing people that I keep everyone away because I'm afraid of hurting them. I have crippling anxiety, and my biggest fear is I'll get angry and not be able to stop it. So I have nothing but compassion for this person. That sounds really horrible. I do see some continued recovery in that because there's an awareness of the damage that the behavior can cause. And when it comes to borderlines that are in denial, or borderlines that, you know, even if they're in therapy, they don't get their part in it. That's the thing that's missing. Is that they either talk themselves out of it, or they're not aware. They don't have the ability to empathize enough to know, wow, that must really be painful what I keep doing to these people. So I hope this person is able to continue to, and I don't know, I'm not a therapist, so I don't know what this person needs to do. But I'm hopeful that if they continue to be aware of that, and if they want to find love in their life, they'll do work to find ways to overcome that symptom. And I think that's all, you know, for those of us on the other end, based on what the research I've done and the borderlines that I've, in therapy that I've interacted with, the splitting never goes away. Just like similar to alcoholics, you know, the alcoholic response to alcohol, you know, the guy or the girl could be, you know, 30 years sober, and if they pick up a beer and drink a beer, once the alcohol hits them, there's this reaction inside of them, they can't stop. And that has nothing to do with their choice. It has nothing to do with their, you know, how long they've been in recovery, none of that. And so the same is going to be with the borderline, is that when it comes to their splitting, they're never going to stop splitting. The only thing they're going to be able to do is if they have enough awareness and if they have the right therapy, then they'll be able to have some ability to manage the symptoms. In other words, not cause harm to people. That's what love is. So what I want to say to this person is that that's love. It has nothing to do with your momentary feeling. It's meaningless. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against loving feelings and feeling good and making other people feel good because you feel good. But it's meaningless if that loving feeling doesn't result in a continuous, logical, continuous, committed, healthy, nurturing behavior. That you can be loving somebody when you feel like you hate them. If you can tolerate the impulse of hating somebody and knowing that your feeling is not rational and has nothing to do with what the other person is doing, that your feeling is your own issue, whatever it is, and you take loving action in spite of that feeling, then that is love. That's the definition of love. So when I say in my videos, the borderline is incapable of loving you, that's what I mean. So borderlines, when they hear me say that, they say, you're wrong. We actually feel more love than you do. Now, I'm not disputing that. I know you feel more love than I do. That's what causes you to split. in the case of the borderline, when they're feeling loving, that's a danger sign. You know, this is why some really sick codependents will try and turn themselves into psychopaths, because they'll go, well, I want to keep them from that, so they abuse them. There's one on my channel. I haven't seen him lately, but he came on, and I mean, to his credit, he kept staying on, or maybe he was just clueless, but I kept on saying, you're a psychopath. You're calling yourself an empath, but you are a covert narcissist. You are a psychopath. Because this person would talk about how they would manipulate their borderline and keep their borderline chasing after them and use them for sex, and started talking about them like they were these objects. In fact, one of the last things this person said was, the borderline teaches you to love yourself because they mirror you. Mine mirrors me, and it's fun. I'm like, you're an absolute narcissist. So a lot of codependents want to turn themselves into narcissists. They've understood that when the borderline feels really loving to them and you give them the love, that causes a split, which makes them split on you. So they try to keep them in the idealization phase. The idealization phase is when they are in their codependence, when they're looking up at you as a parent. And I can feel some of you watching, I can feel you going, ooh, how can I make that happen? That's your psychopathy. I mean, I'm feeling it too as I talk about it. That's your narcissism. But that's abuse. When you know that a borderline is going to look at you as a parent and you're trying to manipulate it to keep them in that spot, and then you withhold the payoff, which is your vulnerability, in the hopes of getting them to stay in that prolonged state of, mirroring you and trying to please you. That's abuse. That's narcissistic, psychopathic abuse. Anyway, so let me just see if I can find the actual. Okay, wait, I have to. Let's see here. Trying to find the one I was looking at. Oh, I'm looking at the video comment. All right, that's not what I want to look at. Sorry, forgive me for just a second. I got to find the comments again. Here we go. All right. So this is where I want to help. She says, I can say I disagree with your statement that we can't love. In my experience, I feel extreme love, just as deeply as I experience misery or depression. So again, that's a feeling. And love, the way, true love, meaning if you give something to somebody that nurtures them and benefits them, creates a deeper bond, creates a deeper trust, creates a better relationship. That is not a feeling. A feeling may stimulate you, and we all are stimulated by our feelings. We never do anything unless, we get an initial feeling. But, what all people go through, see, the thing is, all people go through the same thing that borderlines go through, just not nearly at the same level. We all split. Everybody, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always has conflict of emotions. There's always love and hate, happy, sad, ego, insecurity. We all have those things. And the healthy person learns how to tolerate this. And they can live in the middle of those feelings. And when you have a positive feeling, you have the ability, like if you feel really loving, you have the ability to express that, give things to people, nurture them, because at some point you're not going to love them so much. You marry somebody knowing that after the honeymoon period, then reality sets in and they're not wearing makeup anymore and they fart in bed and they smack their lips when they eat, and they they put the toilet roll on the wrong way. All of it, the fights that happen are this same thing. People, having a hard time giving up their autonomy and merging with another person, and so we all know that. So men especially know that. when we get the question of, does my ass look fat in these jeans? We know, holy crap, I need to get out of this. I'm not answering that question. There's no right answer to that one. I say, well, yeah, actually, your ass does look fat. And if I say, no, your ass looks perfect, stop lying to me. I mean, no matter what I say, I mean, I'm in the doghouse. Do you think about sleeping with other women? There's just no right answer to that question. If I say yes, then I'm horrible. If I say no, then I'm lying. See what I mean? So we understand that. We understand that there's gonna be that. The borderline can't tolerate the feeling. That's the problem. The problem isn't that they're really anything different from anybody else. It's just the extreme. It's just extreme, and they can't tolerate it. It's that they have to act on that feeling. That's the problem. And for borderlines, in case you don't realize that, we know that. We know that that's the problem right now. We know that you're acting against us in a very extreme way simply because you can't tolerate the feeling of being loved, and you can't tolerate your fear of being rejected. And that's why no matter what we do, we think we're going to figure out a way to finally get you to understand. But that's because we don't understand the nature of your mental illness. And that's why I say, if you understand the nature of their mental illness, you'll stop trying. You'll realize it's hopeless. Unless somebody does what this person is doing and they're really putting the work in to take full responsibility for them. So, again, I love everything that you say here. She's learned some ways to deal with it. To her credit, she's been in a relationship for a year, and it's the healthiest she's ever been to a person. And I really am grateful to you for doing that work. And I really support you in that. She says, I hate my evil side. I constantly am working to make sure it doesn't come out. I'm at a constant battle with myself. And that must be very challenging and difficult. She says, I've learned to hold my breath and count to 10 before I say something. Good advice for anybody. Then I ask myself, when I'm in a sound mind, will I regret this? 90% of the time, this helps me keep it to myself. And this, again, this is just, even though it's much more difficult for a borderline, it's no different than what the rest of us do. It's just we can tolerate those feelings. They're not as intense. So I agree with you. Your love is extremely intense. Your hatred is extremely intense. And this is unfortunately simply because the borderline is emotionally and psychologically regressed to the state of an infant. And as you know, infants can't tolerate anything. They cry at anything. Anything makes them cry because they can't tolerate any uncomfortable feeling. So all you're doing is you're doing what the rest of us do, but I'm telling you, I'm aware that it's, infinitely more challenging for you. So just you, it's the act of love. What you're actually very loving, not because you feel love intensely. You're very loving because in those moments when you hate the other person, and at some point she says, I hate them, really intensely. Let me see if I can find it. I bounce from love to hate. Let's see. Talks about her evil side. Anyway, but that's what's happening, is that you're feeling intense hatred. And the loving thing to do has nothing to do with your feeling. The loving thing to do is to first love yourself, because when you tolerate having that feeling of hating the other person and you count to 10, that is first and foremost an act of self-love. You are parenting yourself, because that's what a good parent was supposed to do. A good parent, when the infant is crying, the good parent is supposed to pick up the child and nurture them through the crying. We don't slap infants around and tell them to stop crying. We let them have that feeling. And what ends up happening is that as they get older, they learn how to tolerate their feeling. They learn, in some cases, the parent might have to then, when you turn like 4 or 5 years old, the parent might have to say, okay, you need to knock that off. You need to go to your room, and when you're able to come back and be with us, and then the child learns, okay, I have to soothe myself and parent myself. And that's all you're doing. I mean, it sounds superficial, and that's not a big deal when I say it, but I understand that for you it's nearly impossible, and that it feels like it's killing you. So it's a tremendous act of love when you feel the hatred, that you act in a loving way. And if the best you can do, and for some borderlines the best they can do, is say, I'm splitting and I can't be around you right now. That's an act of love. But the act of feeling the intense feeling and acting on that intense feeling of love isn't love yet. It lays the foundation for love, because here's what the rest of us do. When you are feeling really loving and you love us and you pour your love on us, what happens in our brain is that we receive that wonderful good thing and we appreciate it. And then what ends up happening on an unconscious level is that we assume, and this is built into us, we assume that that's how you're going. It's a commitment that you're saying, I'm committing to treat you like this going forward. And so what we expect on an unconscious level, which is why we're so flabbergasted when the opposite happens, is because that's what we're doing. When we pour love onto you, we are saying to you, this is how I plan to treat you going forward. Even when I don't mean it or I don't want to do it, this is my commitment to you. This is what marriage is. You're going to be with somebody in sickness and in health, and all that. You're meaning, even when I don't want to be anywhere near you, I'm going to follow through with my loving feeling that I have for you right now. And it's great if we can have loving feelings all the time. Some people are able to have loving feelings, more than negative feelings, and great for them. But love is continuing to treat somebody. This is, if people understood this, that when they give love to somebody, they are making a commitment that I'm going to keep doing this, no matter how it feels. This is why, when it comes to sex, usually, everybody's different, but generally speaking, I'm talking more about women than men. Women get, men want to, play the field, and women get more attached. Generally speaking, don't get your panties in a bunch if that doesn't apply to you. Generally speaking, because sex is an energetic commitment. It means I'm committing to be there for you and nurture you going forward. Right? That's why a lot of women don't want to have sex until they get to know you, and they don't want to be with a player, and they don't want one-night stands because it hurts. You've given them this feeling of commitment and then taken that away. So she says, so we aren't just making this stuff up. It's real and it's intense. I absolutely believe you and I agree with you. But hopefully I've made myself clear that feeling the love is just the beginning. And this is where the maturity comes in. So this is the infantile mindset. The infantile mindset is just right now. I have a feeling right now. I have this feeling. I'll always have this feeling. And then it switches to hatred. I hate this person. I will always hate this person. And that's, again, it's just maturity. Maturity says, yes, I'm having this feeling now, but I know later I won't like this person, but I'm going to keep loving them anyway. I'm going to keep acting with love. And the borderline doesn't have that ability. By this, the confession is they're aware. But what you want from me as an adult, you're an adult, I'm an adult, what you want from me isn't realistic because you want me to not ever take any of your feelings more than just a momentary explosion of feeling. And that's your narcissism. Your narcissism is that, you're just wrapped up in yourself. And so that takes me to the next thing I want to say, which is, again, this person, to their credit, talks about the abuse and the recovery they've been in for a lot of their life, and this is why I think they're able to honestly talk about their feelings, their fear of losing people. And she says, I'm able to hold my anger tongue a lot better than I used to, but when I'm overwhelmed, I still hurt myself, and I'm sorry to hear that. She says, but when I'm angry, I hate, all caps, the person I am. So this is good for us to know, because again, if you can realize that when the borderline is hating you, that they're projecting their hate for themselves onto you. When I'm angry, I hate the person I am. It's like I'm constantly in battle with who I am in my mind. It's almost impossible to stop, which leads me to feeling horrible guilt. So I don't want you to feel guilt, because guilt is just anger turned inward. Guilt will always result in destructive action towards the other person. And so one of the other things that I hear borderlines do to try and, explain it, is they'll say, no, you don't understand. We feel horrible guilt afterwards. But again, the same thing. If that guilt, as intense as it is, resulted in a change of behavior, then that would be a good thing. But it doesn't. The intense guilt doesn't give you the ability to not act out on the impulse. And this is why it's important to understand this is a mental illness. Because if you don't understand it's a mental illness, then the only conclusion that anybody comes to is that you're a horrible, evil person. But if you understand it's a mental illness, then you don't have to beat yourself up over it. You do what you can to the best of your ability based on whatever therapy you're doing, so that you don't take action on it. But so on the one hand, the argument is, no, you don't understand. We do love. We have these intense feelings of love. And my point is, yeah, but that ends up being really destructive if that intense feeling of love makes the other person feel safe, and then you turn around and destroy them. So it's actually not helpful. It's actually, for those of you codependents who are wanting to recreate their idealization of you, when they're idealizing you, they're setting you up. Their disease, their mental illness is setting you up to smack you down hard. So if you can get over that and go, red flag. Because again, when it comes to borderlines, they fall in love immediately, and they want to marry you immediately. And they tell you how much they love you and you're the best. If somebody isn't codependent, they get creeped out by that. They'll go, that's a little creepy. I barely know you. I just met you half an hour ago. But being the codependent, you go, oh, finally, somebody sees me. We're meant to be together. You saw it from the moment I came in the room. You saw who I am. The healthy person goes, yeah, let's get to know each other a little more. So it's the same thing. The intense guilt, the intense self-hatred because you did something wrong, that doesn't make it okay. The guilt is codependent, because what you learned as a little baby with your abusive, dysfunctional parents was that you knew that they were going to punish you. You were going to get punished, usually for something that was irrational. And so you beat them to the punch. And that's the guilt. Guilt is, I'm beating myself up first. You don't have to do it. But it's not really because it's an awareness that you've done something wrong. It's a feeling of trying to avoid being hurt. So the guilt is, I'm going to beat myself up so you don't have to. And that's not awareness. That's not an awareness of your behavior. Because people feel guilt for things they don't need to feel guilty about if they're in a dysfunctional relationship. I'm trying to think of an example, but it's not coming to me. So the same thing. The argument of the borderline is, no, you don't understand. I feel things intensely. Yeah, that's not really the point. I'm not trying to take your feelings away. It's just that the guilt doesn't create healthier responses and loving responses, and the love doesn't create healthy, loving responses. So that's what I mean when I say that's meaningless. It's not that you're feelings aren't real and that you shouldn't have them. It's that they don't result in something later. And that only comes through really hardcore self-awareness and in therapy, and then practice. Like you said, whatever technique works. You take a deep breath, you count to 10. That is a loving act to yourself and to everybody else. Your feeling is full of hatred, but that's okay. It's just a feeling. What's important is the conscious decision and the action. That's what matters. And that's what the world judges you on. The world does not judge you on your feelings. The world judges you on your actions. And the only relationship in the universe where the only thing that matters is your narcissistic experience is the infant and the healthy mother. The healthy mother is with the infant, and the only thing that matters to the mother is what the child is feeling right now. The mother has no agenda on this child being loving to me, taking care of me, doing this for me, being there for me, comforting me, protecting me. The mother is completely 100% unconditionally focused on the child. And that is the only time in nature you will ever see that. The only other experience is between you and the universe. But that's a two-way street. You have to allow the universe to love you unconditionally. When we, with our own internal dialogue, see people, the universe, government, other people as out to get us, as in the case of the borderline, their internal experience is that they think that everybody hates them. So they start acting on that narrative. That, you see that prevents us. We can't love you when you do that. We can't. You're not letting us in. Same thing with the universe. The universe, this again, my spiritual hat on, loves you unconditionally like a mother, but you have to allow that to happen, which means you have to trust. Trusting the universe isn't going to, leave you out in the middle of the road is the first step. And then the next step is learning to find out what it is, who you truly are. Because the other thing people say, and I see this, as I'm flipping through, Tinder or whatever, OkCupid, looking for a date. People say, I just want to meet somebody who loves me for who I am. Nobody does that. The only person that ever does that is a mother. When I read that, that's a huge red flag, and I go, okay, that's definitely not somebody I want to date, because that's somebody who doesn't understand. They think that, like an infant, their feelings are the only things that matter, and so you need to magically know what I'm thinking. This is, younger women, like teenagers and early adult women, are notorious for this. When they'll say, I shouldn't have to tell you, you should know what I want. No, you got to tell me. I don't know. I'm an idiot, stupid man filled with testosterone in my brain. I don't have the first clue what's going on with your feelings. You got to tell me. You don't tell me, I can't give you what you want. No, you should just know. That's very childish. The other thing this person says, which I want to point out too, is that they call themselves an empath. So let me see if I can find that. This is a borderline talking here. Borderline says, let's see, she says this, which might be interesting. Studies have shown that brains of BPDs do actually feel things more intensely, and the part of the brain that shuts down emotions doesn't work like a regular person's, which means that they don't have the ability to tolerate their feelings, which is, and I believe that. I believe that it's something chemical and physical in their brain. I am in complete agreement with that, which is, again, unless you're with a borderline who's been in therapy for X amount of years, you're guaranteed pain and misery. They don't have the ability to shut down their impulse to harm you. They can't stop themselves. So it's not their fault. It's your fault for choosing to stay with somebody who can't give you what you want. Let's see what else. She says, I have BPD, but I'm also an empath. So let's be clear on that. The word empath means that you have the ability to have the ability to know other people's feelings. That's all that means. The ability to be an empath in itself, again, is meaningless. Because it is true. Borderlines, because of the nature of their brain and their emotional structure, as well as whatever codependent abuse they suffered, they're incredibly intuitive. They know what you're feeling before you do. And that's when they're not splitting. When they split, they think they know what you're feeling, but they don't. So I would say, listen, if you've split on somebody, and if you have gone through inaccurate splits where you think they're out to get you and that they hate you when they don't, then you're not an empath. In those moments, you're not. Because if you were, you would go, oh, I'm having this feeling that they hate me, but I can feel that they actually love me. You don't have that ability, which means in that moment, you're not an empath. So the whole label of empath is really just an excuse to, and this goes for codependence, because there's a whole breed of codependents that call themselves empaths and super empaths, which is why if you click the join button, you should become a super empath, because, obviously I do that tongue in cheek. So being an empath doesn't mean anything either. Only if that ability to feel other people's feelings gives you the ability to act lovingly and constructively. If your actions are opposite of that, that label of empath is not something that you should be proud of, because it doesn't mean anything. Again, it's the infantile desire to be loved for just because I have a feeling. And that's unfortunately the only time in life when that is something that is continuous, is if you have a healthy mother whose only interest is, I want to know your feelings right now so I can take care of them. But adults, everybody has an agenda. So, there's nothing wrong with having an agenda. This is what codependents need to realize. If you can own your agenda, like you're with a borderline and they split on you 2 or 3 times, and you own your agenda that, hey, I'm in this because I want love, and this person isn't following through. But if you feel guilty, if you feel unworthy of that, then you are going to then talk yourself into, well, I'm just here for them. I'm not here for myself. I'm here for them. And that's a lie. And now you're an abuser. And codependents don't realize that they're continuing to love somebody unconditionally when what they really want is to be loved unconditionally. They don't realize that they are being abusive. I know you have to sit with that for a while, but it's abusive to try and get a borderline to love you when they can't. It's abusive. It's abusive because you're not being honest with your feelings. And you're being abusive to yourself by not acknowledging, hey, I really want love, and it's clear this person isn't going to give me that. So I'm going to go somewhere else. I want to find somebody who can love me back. So that's the things I wanted to look at, is that the main theme here obviously is that this person is saying, understandably, no, it's not that we're evil, horrible, cruel people that don't have any feelings. We actually have too many feelings, which again, that creates a codependence on my part, which is what you don't realize. What you're asking me to do is to not hold you accountable for your actions. You're asking me to make myself available to abuse with the thought of their feelings are so intense that they can't help it. And unfortunately, the way the world is set up, the world will not, no matter what, whether you're alcoholic, drug addict, codependent, borderline, the universe is not going to tolerate people that don't live in a two-way street. The universe just won't tolerate it. And so the first step is to acknowledge, yes, there's something broken in me, and I do deserve love, and I need to, for my own health, fix that which is broken within me so I don't hurt other people. You have to do that first, and then you can learn to tolerate your feelings, and then you'll be able to stay in a loving relationship over the long haul. But asking somebody to put themselves aside just because you have a lot of intense personal feelings, that's abusive. Let's see. It's just something here that I haven't seen before, that I don't understand, and I don't know if I'll be able to. She says, I have been with my partner for a year, which is pretty amazing. And I would constantly try to push him away in the beginning because I'm terrified of losing people. But he is so sweet and kind to me that now I don't ever dislike him. So she's saying she never splits on him. And this is the fantasy of every codependent listening. They want, how do I get that? How do I figure out how to do that? How can I get you to never dislike me? But again, that shouldn't be the goal. It's not normal. It's not human to never dislike somebody. So I have, sometimes the split can just be, delayed. This could be a delayed split. I wouldn't bank on that because it's not healthy. It's not healthy to never dislike somebody. He says, him and my mom are the only people that I don't go through the cycle of love and discard with. Now, there might be something that I'm missing. Maybe there is something healthy that's happened in you that's unique in you as a borderline, but I have doubts about it. I'll give you an example. My mom, I've come to the conclusion my mom was borderline, if not, severely borderline tendencies. And the way that I remember it is that for the first 4 years of my life, my mom and I were the best of friends. And she loved me and doted on me, and we were inseparable. And then when I turned 5, I started having other friends. And one of the first memories I have is I was 5 years old and I was outside in the backyard, and the next door neighbors, those kids, we were over and we were going to sleep outside, in the backyard in our tents. We were going to camp out. We had cots and we were in our tents, and the sun was going down, and wearing 501 jeans, and we were opening and closing the button under, inside of the sleeping bag, and we thought it was funny because it sounded like farts, and we were all laughing. So it was a bunch of little kids laughing and having a good time. And my mom, out of nowhere, bursts out the back door, grabs me, pulls me out of the sleeping bag, pulls my pants down, spanks me, and then walks back in with me with my pants hanging down around my knees. And I was so embarrassed, I just went inside. And that, to me, was my mom splitting on me for the first time. Because it was obvious. Looking back on it, she wanted to have a little toddler to be with. She wanted a best friend. And I was betraying her by laughing. I think she probably must have felt I was laughing at her. Ha ha, I'm leaving you. I'm having my own relationships now. I'm no longer a toddler. And she felt rejected and abandoned and hurt. And who else went on, what was going on inside of her. And she split on me. And that damaged me, to this day. It's just, you can imagine. So it took her 5 years for her first split. So I just want to say that it's great that that's going on, but I wouldn't bank on that because that's not a guarantee you're not going to dislike him later. And if that's the case, and you do split on him, it's going to devastate him. So again, the theme here is it's not about your narcissistic experience of whatever feeling you're having. And that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal shouldn't be, I want to never dislike the person. That should not be your goal. Your goal should be, I want to have normal, healthy feelings, which include both love and hate, like and dislike. Because then when you have feelings, he does something that isn't healthy and isn't nice. At this, you're setting him up to be the perfect person, and he will disappoint you. But he's so sweet and kind to me that now I never dislike him. So you've set it up. I don't dislike him because he's perfect towards me. And that's not healthy. That means that he's constantly, vigilantly making sure that he never hurts you. You haven't seen him yet. He hasn't had the ability to sit down with you and just be himself. And he should be able to come to you and say, I don't want to give to you right now. I need to take care of me. or I don't like it when you do that, or he needs to be able to voice things that you're not going to want to hear. And you have to be able to tolerate that. And then vice versa. If you really love him, then he does something and you do whatever process you do to come to the conclusion that what he did actually wasn't helpful, then you need to be able to sit down with him and say, instead of acting on your feelings, say, I'm feeling hatred towards you right now. I'm really hurt that you did that. It's making me not want to be with you. And then he can look at it. And then if it's healthy, he'll go, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I wasn't doing anything wrong. Or, no, now that you mention it, I realize I was being selfish. This is called a relationship. So we have to be able to get past our own narcissistic experience. That's healthy stuff. So that, while it sounds great on the surface, that's got me a little worried. Maybe it's just a delayed split. But I could be wrong. Anyway, let's see. There's something else. Do I want to say this? Let's get to the codependent here. I just have to do this. I don't know, maybe I'm just too maybe I'm just too reactive. But I want to the codependents out there. I want to share with you my experience of the kind of codependent interaction that I just can't stand. You know, there's a certain type of codependent that I have a very hard time with, and that is the ass-kissing, passive-aggressive codependent. The thing about codependence you got to realize is that they're controlling. You try and control people with your love. And you've learned how to try and control people and get them to do what you want, but you found loving ways to do it with a smile on your face. And so I want to point one out here. So I get these comments a lot on both of my channels. People don't like the ads. I don't know what to tell you. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I sit in front of the computer when I do it, or I take my iPad with me when I do it. And, when the ads come up, I just click, I wait for 4 seconds and I click skip ad and I keep watching. It doesn't bother me. I understand that, by the way, YouTube is an amazing thing. You won't find anything else like it. Try going to Vimeo and watching videos for free. You're not going to be able to do it. So YouTube, to have access to this many free videos is amazing. So they have to have income, or they wouldn't, it costs money to keep YouTube running. It costs a shitload of money. So I'm happy to let them have ads, because I know if it weren't for the ads, I wouldn't be able to have this amazing thing to put videos on and watch videos. So I'm not dismayed by people's ads. But I get that a lot, and I get that from people who say, the ads, and my response is, grow up. Don't be so entitled. This costs a hell of a lot of money, and that's how you get to watch this stuff for free. And so my first response is that it's an immature, selfish person who doesn't understand how YouTube works, and probably doesn't have their own YouTube channel where, they're like me, uploading videos all the time. But that's not the case here. Here's somebody who has a YouTube channel and has ads on their channel, and they're coming at me very passive aggressively, and I just want to show you what a codependent sounds like, and I want to break it down. I want to break it down specifically unsolicited advice. So I'm here to tell you that anytime that you give somebody unsolicited advice, it's abusive. Now, I give a lot of advice on my channel, but it's not unsolicited. I didn't knock on your door or email you or say, hey, I'm going to make this video and you really need to watch it. I don't even know who you are. So I'm not out giving you unsolicited advice. You come onto my channel, you come onto the live stream, you're setting up a two-way street. So even if I give you advice or tell you what I think, it's not unsolicited. Now, we can decide whether or not it's helpful or not, or if I'm not driving up on you in the street honking the horn telling you, hey, You got toilet paper coming out the back of your car there. So just right off the bat, this person says, "Hi, Mike. You might want to bring it down a notch with the use of ads in your videos." I mean, right off the bat, I hate this person. It just comes across so petty. And this person is just, my feeling, I don't know if this is you, then and it's not how you feel. I just want you to know how it comes across. It comes across that this is somebody who's waiting to just put somebody in line, and I can't wait to, but they're codependent, so they sugarcoat it. They put a smile on their face. You might want to bring it down a notch with the use of your ads. Not only is it rather disruptive when one appears every 5 minutes, but it's going to encourage people to start using ad block when they watch them, which will affect your ad revenue, law of diminishing returns. As someone who has enjoyed and learned a lot from your channel, ass kissing, dating back to your very first videos earlier this year, I wouldn't want to see that happen. Oh, you're going to take responsibility and make sure I don't have bad things happen. By the way, how about a tour of your flat in a future video? I'm very curious to see the rest of the layout based on the angle we always see. So you don't need to pretend to be my friend. That's ass kissing. It's manipulative. You don't need to do that. Now that may honestly be something that you want, but based in the context of this, I don't buy it for a second. I think that that's a way to try and distract me from your passive-aggressive anger. You're angry at me. And I would respond much better, even though I would still tell you to go screw yourself. If you said, "I really hate watching the ads. Can you do something about it?" I would say, if you don't like it, stop watching the channel, or go onto YouTube and Google how to avoid watching ads. But at least it would be an honest complaint. To pretend like you're doing it to help me is bullshit. Let's just please. And the way, oh my God, I thought it was a woman. So my first thought was this was a person who didn't understand, the whole idea of having a channel and having ads on your channel and trying to have revenue, because this is my, basically, I have two aspects to my work. I have my clients and then I have my videos on both my channels. So yeah, I want to make as much money as I can off of it because this is my business. So I'm thinking this person doesn't understand it. I click on I click on, by the way, I can go look at yours too. I click on them and guess what? They have a channel that is a podcast. And I watched one video for less than, I scrolled through it for less than 3 minutes and I had to watch 2 ads. Now, this person should know better. Now, if this person had come to me and said, "Hey, Mike, I have a channel and I have ads, so I understand why you're doing that. And I've learned that if I go into my preferences and I set the ad ratio to this, that I get more people. Just want to share that with you." I still might tell you to go screw yourself, but at least it would be valuable information that I could do something with. But what am I supposed to do with, "You might want to bring it down a notch with the use of your videos. And oh, by the way, I can hear you having sex late at night." You sound like the pain in the ass, neighbor lady from Bewitched. You're going to come over and just, it's not, codependence, you're not coming across nice when you do that. He sandwiched it in there. He's going to help me out. And then he's going to say, "Hey, why don't you show me your house? Like I'm your friend. Like, I see I'm your friend. Do you really?" Maybe they really do want to see my house, but I don't think so. I think it's one of those sandwich things where you kiss ass and then tell people the real thing you want to say, and then you kiss ass again because you feel guilty. So I'm just using that again. Codependence, we are, we're so controlling and we're, not honest. And if you can get honest with the anger, like if this person could get honest with the anger, it angers them that I'm not making things convenient for them with allowing ads on my channel. At least it would be honest. And I can I would respect that a lot more than pretending to kiss my ass. That's just my thing. It drives me up the wall. And again, unsolicited advice is abusive every time. Every time you drive up on somebody. Now, if I have something I want to say to somebody, either because I think I can help them, which again, their life is none of my business. But sometimes that happens. Or if there's something that's bothering me, that also includes some advice. What I do is I say, hey, I have some thoughts that might be helpful for you about thus and such. Would you like to hear it? And if they say yes, then I tell them. But I want to give them the right to say no. But anything other than that is abusive, in my experience. And it's abusive because people don't realize how angry they are. And you were shamed as a kid, and or your parents were passive aggressive, so you learned how to do it. But it's actually an act of love when you can tell somebody honestly that something they're doing is bothering you. In this case, being upset because I have ads on my channel, then watch some other channel. That's my choice. You don't have to like it. Right? All right. Let's take some questions here. God Emperor, welcome. You're from my other channel. Yes, this is also a Q&A. Merry Christmas. Thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas. Kat G says, I'm working on unconditional love. I'm not there yet. Why are you working on it? I don't know if you're a borderline or if you're a codependent. I don't need you to work on unconditional love. Oh, you're ex-Bpd. All right, so let's see here. Let me read the whole thing first. I'm working on unconditional love, not there yet. I'm sad for my ex-Bpd and enraged at the same time he didn't even reach out to his sons today. Living his best life with his girlfriend. So to me, yeah, this is what I'm responding to. It feels like what you're calling unconditional love is codependent guilt. You're angry at yourself for being sad and angry. Just be sad and angry. That's it. Don't work on unconditional love right now. Just be sad and angry. It's okay. You're not going to get to unconditional love until you first unconditionally love yourself in your feelings, your sadness and your anger. Then you can work on unconditional love. But right now you're doing that codependent thing of your job is to be the doormat and allow people to hurt you and not be upset with them. No, this is the father of your children, and he hasn't reached out to his children on Christmas, and that is saddening, and you have every right to be sad and angry. At the same time, lucky you. How lucky for you that the toxic borderline is not contacting you. You should, at the same time, I would say, good, that's good. God Emperor says, I'm working on self-improvement and doing my best to stay away from relationships. Well, those aren't necessarily the same thing. I don't know why you're staying away from relationships. It sounds like you need, to be honest, it sounds like you need therapy. That in and of itself, avoiding relationships isn't going to solve whatever your problems are. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I mean, I was celibate for 6.5 years. I'm single right now, mostly by choice. If somebody comes along I really want to date, I'll date. But for the most part, I'm staying single by choice because I am actually working on my, my meditation and my Tao and my energy work and things like that. So I'm kind of enjoying being alone. But what I'm hearing here doesn't sound that way. It sounds like you're avoiding relationships because there's something broken inside of you, and you should be seeking to fix that, not necessarily staying away. So I think you need help. I don't think you're going to be able to figure it out on your own. We almost never are able to fix these deeply held problems on our own. Let's see, what else? You say you're in the process of taking full responsibility. Great. Are you doing that alone? It's a lot longer road if you do it alone. You're probably not going to have the results you want. You're going to need some help. So I'd get a therapist, or I'd get a counselor, or I don't know enough about you to know why and what you need. In fact, I'm not even sure you should be on this channel. I don't know if you've been in a relationship with a borderline or not, which is what this channel is really about. But welcome regardless. I do recognize you from the other channel. Evo, meeting my ex hindsight. Actually, the phrase is hindsight. S-I-G-H-T. It means seeing from behind. Hindsight. All right, so there's some unsolicited advice, but that bothers me. Meeting my ex in hindsight, meaning after the fact, was a blessing in disguise. It made me confront my own issues and work on them. Creative Virgo. So again, the best way to interact with me is with a question. So here's a question. Let's see. Creative Virgo. I can't remember. Are you a borderline or not? Again, it's not my job to fix borderlines. But question: are they addicted to neurochemistry of rage or giving pain? So you're asking, are borderlines addicted to rage or giving pain? Possibly, but how does that help you? How does that help you, knowing that? Let's see. Yeah, 666 says, instead of complaining about ads, download the ad block extension for Firefox Chrome. Yeah, the person said that, that they obviously know how to do that, but anyway, yeah, like I said, it came across really passive aggressive to me. KK, question: what makes someone with BPD rage? All right, so are you new to the channel? I explained that. I have videos on this channel that tell you what is going on inside the borderline split, the rage. The short answer is the BPD rages because of vulnerability. What's happening is that they love somebody, they have strong loving feelings towards somebody, which makes them feel vulnerable. And so they're deathly afraid of being abandoned or rejected. So what happens is there's a conditioned response that when they feel loving and feel vulnerable, it automatically creates a deathly fear of abandonment. And so their defense against feeling abandoned is to reject. And so the hatred is their defensive mechanism, which is trying to protect them from being hurt. And ironically, they're hurting you first. They're not doing this consciously. They're not planning it out. It's a completely visceral, just instinct. It's an impulse. It's an impulse to protect them. It's like when somebody's going to break up with you, so you break up with them first. So that's what they do. Actually, their experience is you're going to kill them. And so they're going to try and, emotionally, psychologically kill you first. That's why they rage. It's not so much that they go, hey, this isn't working for me and I'm going to break up with you. It's that I hate you. You're out to get me. You're the worst person ever. I'm going to slash your tires. They're projecting onto you what they think you're going to do to them. They don't know that, but that's what it is. Let's see what else. Yeah, Mrs. Kravitz, the nosy neighbor. Jimin's precious penicillium. Yes, I'm codependent. Still trying to be okay alone after done with a relationship with a BPD man. Are you doing the three things? In case you're new to the channel, the whole point of this channel is so that you can 100% heal. Mine was a year ago. It'll be, it's today, 365 days ago today is when I got the final discard. There was another couple of weeks before I tried to go and get closure, which then made me, block her. I went no contact after that, but this was 365 days. I have no pain. I have no anger. I don't miss her. I don't, I haven't blocked her out of my mind. I have nothing but love and compassion for her. And I have no desire or need to have any interaction with her. And that's a result of these three things. Therapy. 2, coda.org. Work the 12 steps. It doesn't mean just go to that website. It means go there, go to an online meeting, raise your little virtual hand and say, I'm new, I need somebody to walk me through the 12 steps. And then number 3 is daily meditation. That can be Qigong, that can be yoga, that's some kind of self reprogramming. Those are the 3 things. Anybody watching this channel, if you're new, I'm not going to have any sympathy for you if you don't do those 3 things. You can do all 3 of them. They can be free. Therapy, yes, most therapists charge, but if, like me, I just typed in free online therapy, took me 10 seconds, and I found 5, 6 links just on the first page. You may have to go through a bunch, but if you want therapy, you can get it, so please don't try and tell me you can't get therapy. 2, coda.org. As I said, go there and raise your hand and work the 12 steps. It's free, and you don't even have to leave your house. You can go to a Zoom meeting. And 3, daily meditation. I teach you how to do that on this channel, on the other channel, on the join button. On the 90-day challenge, I teach you how to do that as well. So you have, and on my other channel is free meditations. So there's no excuse. If you're not willing to do those 3 things and do them on a daily basis, then I have no sympathy for you if 5 years down the road you're still in pain. I have empathy and compassion, but I have no sympathy because it's your choice. Your choice not to do the work. You don't have an excuse now. You can't say, I don't know what to do, because I told you exactly what to do. And it's not me. You don't have to even do it with me. You're not paying me money. I'm giving you that information for free. Go do it. Now, let me get back to the let's see, there was a comment here. I'm codependent, still trying to be okay with a loan after done with a relationship with a BPD man. So still, how long? Has it been months? Has it been years? You can heal. You don't have to try and be okay. You don't have to force yourself to be alone just to be okay. That's not healing. You're just putting off the inevitable. The disease inside of you, because once you get bitten by one of these Bpd people, you get infected with it, and that infection gets worse and worse over time. Just because you're not with them doesn't mean anything. So when I hear you say things like, I'm still trying to be okay, that tells me you're not doing any work. Now maybe you didn't know, but now you do. Those 3 things, go do them. You want to heal? I'm telling you, completely 100% healed from the damage of that relationship? You can. You won't ever be healed of whatever codependence you have. That's a lifetime thing, but I don't have any pain in me whatsoever. I don't, and I'm not the, people 5, 10 years, 20 years after are still mourning over the loss of their narcissist or their borderline and why they did it to me, and I still miss them. That means that you're infected. There's something wrong. That isn't normal. Those are that's the way to fix it. So, go do it. Nick Carey, question, how do you think a borderline would react to someone abusing them? Why are you asking that question? That's a really, who would ask that question unless you're wanting to abuse them? Seriously, what's the point of that question? Think about what my response is going to be. So let's imagine I give you a response, or they're going to react like this. Why would that even enter your mind? Maybe you're asking, I'm watching them being abused by a narcissist and I'm trying to understand their thought process, why they're in it. Or you're fantasizing about abusing them back and getting revenge. And you want to know if it'll take, if they'll see it and feel it and know. I don't know why you're asking that question. The fact of the matter is that a borderline's entire life is a reaction to abuse. So you want to know how a borderline would react to someone abusing them? They would feel unsafe, they would feel fearful, they would feel attacked and damaged, and they would react with hostility and anger or self-destruction. All you have to do is just find out what borderlines do. That is the reaction. What is accurate is what some people have said is that borderline personality disorder is a reaction to PTSD, which is abuse, complex PTSD. So again, I don't understand the question. If you really want me to look at that and you think the question has value to it, help me understand why you're asking that. Give me a specific instance? Are you thinking about somebody in particular and you're wanting to know how they would respond? What kind of abuse are we talking about? And then why are you asking the question? Jimin's precious penicillium. How can a person be so unaware when he's hurting other people? Listen to me very carefully. They have a mental illness. Your question assumes they're not mentally ill. Your question is a question about a rational person. What you're really saying is, how can a rational person who understands the effects of their behavior and understands their feelings and understands you, how can they be so unaware when they're hurting somebody? Because obviously they're not rational. There's obviously something wrong with them. You're standing next to somebody with, what is that? Schizophrenia. And the schizophrenia is looking up in the sky, and there's a plane up in the sky, and the schizophrenic says, I don't like the way you're flying that plane. You wouldn't go, how could you not know that I'm not flying that plane, you mentally ill person? You would go, yeah, that's schizophrenia for you. Then you would kindly say, I'm not flying the plane. I'm right here. You are watching somebody do really irrational, hurtful things, and you're asking the question as though they're rational, which means you want them to love you. Because if you didn't want them to love you, you wouldn't see them as rational. You would go, wow, that is a really damaged person. You wouldn't ask that question. Now, your question is actually going all the way back to childhood. That question is about your parents. What you don't understand, what you have in common with the borderline, is that your parents didn't love you or see you or were abusive to you or neglectful or confusing or all of the above. And as a little kid, you couldn't understand, why can't you see that I'm here and that I exist and that I have feelings and I have value? Why? How could you not love me? That's your real question. But now that's been pushed deep into your unconscious. You've been programmed, so you chase after somebody who treats you the same way or reminds you, that brings up the same kinds of feelings that you had as a kid. And then you get to play that question all over again. You get to have the reason why we repeat it so that we can try and figure it out. What you're really trying to figure out is why your mom and dad didn't love you. And the answer to your question is because they also were disabled in some way. So the answer to your question is that they have a mental illness. The point of understanding they have a mental illness is so that you won't stay in the relationship, you won't seek them out. And again, if you ask that question, you need those three things. If you don't do those three things, that question could kill you. When you do those three things, you won't need to ask that question ever again. Gary Stafford, question. Do borderlines consciously use projection as a manipulative tool, or is projection a completely unconscious process? Keeping me on the defensive kept me from investigating her issues. No, it's not conscious. Psychological projection, it's assumed, is unconscious. I mean, projection is unconscious. I just went through this. I mean, I'm no different than you guys. I got a group of people that I meet with online, and they pull my virtual pants down all the time and show me where I'm, in my unconsciousness. And they kept on telling me, I'm still trying to figure it out. How is it you guys didn't see my back? Another person in the group was doing something I didn't like. And I was saying, you're doing this and you're doing that. And the group said, no, they're not. This is your projection, Mike. And it was very painful. It's still very painful because I'm still working through it. So it means that they project onto you their unconscious experience. Now, you do the same thing. It's counter projection. You can't be in a relationship with a borderline if you aren't also projecting onto them. So if you really want to understand that question, you should be asking it about yourself. That real question should be, do codependents consciously use projection as a manipulative tool? Or is the projection completely unconscious? And here you show your unconscious projection because you say, keeping me on the defensive kept me from investigating her issues. No, she didn't do anything. She doesn't have that power. Or he does, I'm assuming it's a she. She doesn't have the power to keep you from doing anything. You chose to do that. You chose to let her distract you from your feelings, and you chose to let her keep you from investigating her issues because you wanted to continue with the delusion that she was rational and that you could get her to love you. Which means that you aren't conscious of how deeply you need her love and how unrealistic it is for you to ask an infant to love you. I'm not blaming you. I did the same thing. But that's where the healing is. The healing is to look at yourself. But no, the short answer is no. They don't consciously do that. That doesn't, obviously, as you know, that doesn't excuse it. But again, my whole point is that people wake up and go, I'm in this out of my own selfish projection. And I'm with, an infant. I'm trying to get an infant to love me? I'm the crazy one here. That's what I want you to walk away with. So, let me see what else. All right, so 666 is sharing his experience, and I understand that. There's not a question in that. Really isn't anything I want to say because they're just sharing their experience, and I get it. Heidi Ivy, how do you get infected by Bpd people? And yes, I'm new here, just asking. So welcome. If you write the word question before you write a question, there's a better chance I'll see it. How do you get infected by Bpd people? So I'm using that word, with artistic license. Obviously, if you're a codependent, you can't be infected with borderline personality disorder. But what ends up happening is that the codependent aspect of needing to figure out a way to get the relationship to work, you end up taking on their projections. What the borderline wants, which is what everybody wants, but what the borderline, their mental illness is brilliant. I mean, it's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. They're brilliant at it. They're not consciously trying to do it. But what they're brilliant at is their abuse that they do on you is designed to get you to feel what it's like to be a borderline. And the progression is that, when you first get to know them, obviously, it takes time to really let somebody in very deeply. This is what the splitting is. The splitting, among other things, what it creates, the dynamic, what it creates in you, is that number one, it trains you not to hold them accountable for their behavior. It also trains you to not expect anything from them. But it also trains you on being completely responsible for them. And you choose to go along with this. You're being programmed to do this. Their mental illness is programming you. Because what they want, just like everybody else, is they want to be seen and they want to be understood. The ironic part is that when you finally see them and experience them, they will have no more use for you. And so their mental illness will then devastate and destroy you beyond repair. And that will be the final discard. So for some people, it takes 30 years, 40 years before they get to the final discard. Because the illusion that you have is that I'm almost there. I've almost got them. If I just try a little bit harder, I'll finally get them to love me. You think you're making progress. What you experience as progress is that each time they devalue you, they split on you, it damages you, but it also then makes you more desperate because you're codependent for the intimacy and for the love. And so then they love bomb you, which makes you then think, I need to give more of myself to them. I need to make myself more available and more vulnerable. And they say, yes, that's exactly what I want. And they eat that up. And then the fear hits them, and then they devalue you again. Because when they're right on the verge of letting that love come into them and create a bond they're not capable of, they split. So when they split, it means that you've done it. You've had 100% success, and you've gotten what it is you think you're supposed to, what you've given what you think you're supposed to give them. You don't see it that way. You see it as, I was almost there. I almost did it. No, but in actuality, you did it. Bing, 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 you won. The jackpot is their love is destructive. You got their love. That's how you know. Now, if you're really codependent and sick, you might keep seeking after that. But what ends up happening is that over time, each time they devalue you, you get more vulnerable. They get more vulnerable to pull more vulnerability out of you. And they're brilliant at doing that. And they'll keep doing that as long as there is vulnerability left within you. And when they get to your juicy center where there's nothing left for them to get from you, you will now know what it feels like. You will feel exactly the way they felt. They're not always conscious of it. Their defense mechanism keeps them from being completely conscious. That's why therapy for borderlines can be really painful, because they have to get to that, that juicy center of fear and abandonment. They have to get there. But they're not there yet, but they're going to make you feel it. And when you can look them in the eyes and you know exactly how they feel, because now you're feeling it, you've been thoroughly infected and you no longer have any use for their illness, and they'll discard you. So, what was I going to say here? Where was I going with that? "666 says she's the only girl I've truly loved." That's not true. You still don't love her. You think you love her, but you don't. That's not love. I don't want to get into it, but just trust me. That's what you feel. What you think is love was your dysfunctional relationship with your parents. Your parents taught you that love was abuse. So when you're abused like that, when you're constantly reaching after somebody that's unavailable, it stimulates your infantile needs. So you're projecting onto the borderline this is the funny thing about it. The ironic thing is that borderlines, when they love you, they're projecting you as a parent. And when you feel their love, you project back onto them. So it's two infants projecting back to each other. It's not love. Love isn't a feeling. Love is an action. So you're talking to me about you have these intense feelings, and I know you think that I'm wrong. No, you don't understand. I did all this for her and I did that for her. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not love. Stick around, you'll know what that means. How do you get infected by the BPD? So that's what I mean. When you get infected, when you get devalued and you keep going back, it sets you up to feel exactly what the borderline feels like. After I was discarded, I remember walking around. I was living in a town. I didn't know anybody there, and I didn't have any friends. And it was this time of year. Imagine, it was Christmas, and I had just been discarded. And I was walking around some town I didn't know, and there are people and their families, and they're all getting together, and they're all having Christmas and New Year's, and I was all by myself, and I felt so unlovable. I felt so unworthy. And I felt like a feral dog. When I walked by and a woman smiled at me, I was shocked, and I started breaking down into tears. Just somebody smiling at me broke me down into tears. Don't you know how worthless I am? And that's when I went, oh my God, what has gone on with me? You know, people who know me, there's a couple people on here now. They know my other channel. I mean, my whole channel is about self-empowerment and, you know, I am, you know, we're all God and all that, and I can accomplish what so you can understand what a big drop that was for me to go from you and the universe or everything, and you know, to go from that to somebody smiled at me and I feel so unworthy. That's because I'd been infected. I had been infected and I knew exactly what she was carrying around in her all the time. And that's really when I started becoming aware I've been infected. And that's what really got me to go, I need help. And I did those 3 things I pointed out. And I'm healed. I didn't think I was going to heal. I thought I was going to be broken forever. And it's not the same kind of, you know, like, you know, when somebody dies on you or when you know, you go through a divorce. Those are painful and you have to heal from those. But you don't say, I'm broken, I'll never, you know, you're able to put yourself back together. The borderline disables you to the point where you can't put yourself back together. You won't be able to unless you get help. So, you know, those of you who are trying to just limp along, you know, imagine you've got a broken leg. And you're like, it's okay, I'll just give it time. I mean, you got to set it. You got to set the bone and put a cast on. Otherwise, you're going to be limping the rest of your life. Borderline does more than just hurt you. It's more than just being, you know, sad or even betrayed. It's more than that. It's the deepest, most intimate damage that anybody can do. In my experience, anyway. And that's why I call it an infection. It gets worse also. It gets worse over time. Just because you're not with them, you say, okay, yeah, it's over, and she discarded me, and I've blocked her, and I'm just going to heal myself. But, you know, however you're feeling now, there is the possibility that a year from now you're going to be worse. 2 years from now, you'll be even worse. I just got something from somebody 5 years afterwards. They still mourn and cry over, and if I could give it to you, I mean, I want to read it, but it was, if you were to look at it objectively, you'd go, that wasn't even anything of any significance. You were barely with that person. So you have to have that within you. It's like this seed of codependence. There's like this seed of despair within you, and they're going to find it, and they're going to water it, and they're going to nurture it, and it's going to grow. It's like that's why I call it an infection. So 666 is doing right. So 666, have you done the 3 things? By the way, I would change your name. Not that I'm a Christian or anything. It's just I know what, you know, that whole, you know, I'm dark and I'm following the devil. That's an unconscious plea for God to come save you. It's I would recommend you change your name. Something more empowering than that. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that with you. Used to beat myself up after being discarded, no contact now 4 months. Are you doing the 3 things? Do those 3 things. Endless existentialism. So much hopelessness. I used to be an existentialist. I was a nihilist. I was a Christian nihilist. Merry Christmas. It's CPTSD, essentially borderline, but without the fear of abandonment. Is CPTSD? No, CPTSD is just a general thing. I mean, you know, you could have CPTSD for something else, but I mean, it's just a form. It's just one of the forms. So, I mean, I don't overthink it. Anyway, I don't know how else to answer that. Again, write the word question if you have a question, please. Creative Virgo question. It is helpful to know about rage or pain inducing, as you said, killing during vulnerability. My ex was subject to raging moments, and you are helping me to accept the account. Okay, that's not a question, but I'm glad I'm able to be helpful. All right, so that's kind of it for me today. Merry Christmas, etc., etc. click the join button if you want to have access to members-only videos where I share with you really important awarenesses that I had. And I try to do in those videos what you're not going to find anywhere else. I really put my mind into, okay, what is it that's my message that is able to reach people that you're not getting from other channels, or so I talk about that. I explain to you why those 3 steps, why they're so important, and I give you 2 very powerful meditations that allow you to change your brain chemistry so that you can look at your feelings more objectively. And then over here on the 90-day challenge, we've got over there at thunderwizard.com, click around for Warrior 90-day challenge. I have exercises that, again, change your nervous system, change your brain chemistry so that you can actually live your life, find out what you want to do with your life. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about people being able to fight whatever it is that's blocking you from you loving and experiencing everything in yourself, having the best life possible. And it is a war. You got to fight for it. If you've been through the places we've been through, you have to fight like your life depends on it. So before I go any further, again, those 3 things, like I said before: therapy, 12 steps, and daily meditation. If you're not willing to do all 3 of those things, which are free, even there's online therapy, if you're not willing to do that, I'm not going to have any sympathy for you. I'll have empathy, but I won't have any sympathy, because somebody says, I got the pill here, it'll cure you of your lethal cancer. If you say, no, I'll be all right, you're like, all right. That's how I feel about it. So I understand how hard it is. I understand the resistance, why you don't want to do it, but it's free. The only thing you'll lose is the pain. All right, nothing else to say, so I'm going to keep going, or I'm going to leave. Sorry, I got other things to do. Thanks, guys, and I look forward to seeing you next time I see you.